Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Centre Circle podcast, the new home of West Midlands football. I'm your host, Dale Nichols, and joining me today, we've got regular contributors Drew and Alex, and also joining us today, I'm delighted to say, is former Aston Villa player and current Sheffield Wednesday club captain, Barry Bannan. How you doing, Barry?
I'm good, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. First off, big congratulations from all of us here at the Centre Circle podcast on your recent new 2-year contract with the Els.
Yep, thank you. It was about time. I dragged on a little bit, but I'm happy to have it sorted now and kick on from there, basically.
Good to hear. Well, some of the clubs that Barry's represented over the years include Derby, Leeds, Crystal Palace, Bolton, and of course Blackpool, where in the 2009-10 season, they gained promotion back to the Premier League via the playoffs. This, of course, was famously achieved under the stewardship of Ian Holloway, an iconic figure of the Football League in recent years and famed for his touchline passion and erratic statements. Barry, what was it like playing under him?
He was actually really, really good. He was a bit mad, Holloway, some days at Blackpool with the facilities and that. We used to clean our own kit and stuff like that, so it wasn't ready for the Premier League, really. But I think with the group of boys that they had, they got on with it and just never complained, and that's how they probably got there in the end, just through hard work and not really caring as much. But Holloway was good behind that as well, where some days we'd go in and we couldn't train because the training pitch was terrible. So he would just take us down to the cafe and we'd have bacon and sausage sandwiches and stuff like that. He would say, right, the pitch is no good enough today, we'll be down to the cafe, and this would be a Thursday, the game's on Saturday, you'd be eating like 3 sausage and bacon sandwiches 2 days before a game.
That's how football should be.
But that's probably how we didn't take it. The players took the football serious, but I think just from going out and spending time like that, some of the days where we wouldn't train and just go to the cafe and have a bit of banter and that, the team spirit was unbelievable. And you don't really see that nowadays where teams are like that. They go and do their own thing away from the training ground. They're more with their families. But from what I can remember at Blackpool, it was the team spirit basically got them promotion that year.
Was that before or after the casino, Baz?
The casino was after the semi-final second leg. So I think I'd done about a 3-day bender after we beat Forest in the second leg, building up to the playoff final at Wembley. We get the bus back for Forest that night and we ended up at the casino, and this was about 12 at night, the gaffer and everybody were there. And I think we ended up in the casino till like 6, 7 in the morning. And a few stragglers left, a few weak people left. I've seen them off. And then I think I can just remember being in Lytham Town Centre at about 3 in the afternoon. Next day, still no sleep in the tracksuit with a few others. And one of the guys' missus have bust into the pub saying, "Your wains are just, you've got to do the school run and you're in here still steaming." That put an end to the 3-day bender.
For anyone who's not Scottish, Wayne's are babies, by the way.
Yeah, kids.
So what was the... You've sort of touched on the semi-final. I'd imagine sort of when you won the playoff final, I'd imagine that night out was special.
Yeah, it was unreal. We done like a couple of days there as well. That was like 3 days worth, because I think we had a parade as well.
Yeah.
The first night wasn't too bad after the final because it was families and all that back at the hotel after the game. So that was quite subdued, really. Obviously, everybody was drunk, but you're tired as well after the game. So we had a few drinks and we were still up till like 3, 4 in the morning. But the next day was the one, because we got up at about 10. And I think the families went back to Blackpool in their bus and all the players were on their own bus, and it was just carnage the whole way up the motorway.
Yeah.
Stopping off at services, filling up, like getting more beers and that. It was crazy. But it was amazing because they were probably like tipped to get doing that year, really. And the facilities and everything that the boys had to deal with. We used to go to Subway after training every day because there was no canteen or that. It was just drive out the training ground, turn right, and you land at a Subway or a McDonald's. So it was mental how they actually got promoted, really.
Quite a
Funny,
strange
actually,
little
like,
ground, isn't it? Bloomfield Road. The road is literally right at the back of the side of the ground, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's basically buying the. You can see the Pepsi Max and everything for it. It's mental. The training ground was horrific. That was right next to an airport, and obviously wide open. So any wind or rain, you couldn't really train. So we missed a lot of training, to be honest, and just ended up being down to, can't remember the name of it. It was just this calf by the beach that we would go and just have sausage sandwiches and then get home.
Brilliant. I mean, from me personally, I think I remember seeing when the Villa went up, and there was a few videos on social media of you sort of celebrating with Jack Grealish. I'd imagine sort of not having that sort of those 90 minutes in your legs, playing. I bet the celebrations were sort of went deeper into the night when you got a bit more energy about you with the Villa as well.
Yeah, that was mental because I milked that because I knew my daughter was coming in a few weeks. So
I remember
one of my last nights out for a while. So I made sure it was a few nights rather than just the one night. I don't know how it happened actually. I seen them all the night they won because I was in the same nightclub, but I was with my mates, and then the next day Jack must have been texting me saying he's still in London with Huts and people like that, who obviously Huts I got on well with for Scotland. So we went and met them, and then we ended up, this was the night after they won the final. We went out till about 3 o'clock that morning, and then I thought that's enough for me. I better get back because the missus was, well, she wasn't due any time, but she was like 1 or 2 weeks away. So I had to get my head ready.
I think the next video I saw of you was on a golf course. I think the next video of him, he was in Ibiza.
Yeah, well, obviously, Jack was celebrating. It's one of the best moments you probably have in football. So he had a right to go mental, really. Like, I think a few of them would have probably been over there as well in Ibiza celebrating. So fair play to them. Yeah,
definitely. Just sort of taking it right the way back, mate, in terms of sort of when you were coming through, or sort of when you were maybe established. What was the worst initiation, or was it your own initiation that was the worst that you've seen?
Initiations, probably.
I've heard the story about yourself when Savage drenched you with water.
Yeah, that's the worst, because at Villa I never really had to do much, because once you come through somewhere as a kid, you get away with it, really. Obviously, you get battered off the first team and that when you first get in the first team squad or something like that. But the Savage one was probably the worst, because obviously you're going to a new club, nervous, young boy, like not really been around first team changing rooms, and walked in. So I was quite nervous straight away, and then I'm in the toilet, and then I'm absolutely 2 minutes later, I'm drenched. And I'm thinking, no, I have to walk out here and there's going to be everybody in the changing room staring at me and pissing themselves laughing. So it was like it was a sink or swim moment, and I just went mental. Obviously, the Scottish in me, and
right.
My mum and dad and that. So my instant reaction was to be fuming. So
what did you say to him?
I just knew it was him, because obviously going there, I was warned about him. He's a bit of a prankster and that. And obviously, as soon as you walk into the changing room, you can tell who it is. And I just remember going mental at him, but he was just pissing himself laughing. So it
probably targeted you because the Blues Villa thing as well, didn't they?
I didn't really mind them, because I think at the time when I was coming through, I can't remember really Savage being at Blues, but obviously I knew he was a good player in that. So he was one of the bigger characters in the changing room. So I got on with him really well after that, to be honest. That was just a funny moment from him. He used to do it all the time, but he was a really good guy, to be honest.
I've always described him as one of them players that you hate him if he plays against you, but you'd love him if he played for you.
Yeah, he was really good. I remember growing up as a kid thinking he was just a run around and a bit of a smasher, but when I went to Derby and started to train with him, he actually was really good in the ball as well. So he was better than I thought he was, and he was a lovely guy. He was a really down-to-earth guy. He was one of the oldest guys and probably had the best career in that changing room at that time. So he could have easily have been a bit big time, but he was really good with me and spoke to me like straight away.
Yeah. So moving on to someone who was never far from controversy. We obviously recently saw the ref, and I think he was Alan Judge for Ipswich, recently got a bit heated on the pitch. What were your sort of immediate thoughts on that? And as a captain, how would you have handled that?
I think it was a bit mental, but what you forget, I'm probably one of the worst for it as well. I hammer refs and I'm a captain, so I shouldn't really do it because I should be leading by example. But when you're in that moment in the heat of the battle, you forget all that, and it's just my instant reaction. So, but there's probably times where there's loads of times where I've stepped over the line with referees, but I think probably from looking at it, you don't see refs reacting like that. So it was a bit, probably put the boy in the back foot really, because he probably wasn't expecting it. He looked as if he was a bit scared when the ref.
He didn't fancy it, did he?
Nah, because he probably not even that he never fancied it. He probably just thought he was shocked, obviously, because you don't expect a ref to be in your face, but I'd have probably took a straight red, I think.
Yeah, I think you're used to it though with your mum, aren't you?
Well, she's always in my face. That's her just saying hello to me. That's her saying hello. She's in my face, trying to hear me. But I don't know. I'd probably be a bit the same because you're not expecting it. But that's where we're probably wrong as players as well. Like, they're human beings, so if you're going to give it out, then you should really be able to take it as well.
No, definitely. I mean, obviously, I've not played anywhere near the level you have, but any kind of competitive sport you're playing, and you sort of, we're all winners. We've all sort of overstepped it with the ref, and probably in non-league more than probably the professional game, that they give it us back. And probably some of them have waited for you after the game as well. Some of them, they fancy it, but it is unfair. I think some of the refs do take probably a lot more than they probably do deserve, to be fair. But moving on from that, sort of. Who's sort of the funniest man in football who you've played with or sort of been around, or if you've got any stories about him?
I would say it's probably well known in football, not just from me playing with him. Robert Snodgrass is unbelievable. Obviously, there's people like Jimmy Bullard and that, but I've never really been around Bullard and people like that. But I've seen Robert Snodgrass in action, and he's unbelievable. I remember going to Leeds, a young kid again, and he was on loan there. He was at Leeds when I went there on loan, and he was Scottish, so we had a connection straight away. And I remember he was telling me this joke, and I thought, that is unbelievable, and I've used it. I think it was him or Billy Painter. It was one of the two of them. But there was loads of characters in that changing room. It could have been a toss-up of who was the funniest, really. Billy Painter, Snodgrass, Ross McCormack. There was Bradley Johnson. It was a mad changing room, that like a funny changing room. But Snoddy tops them all. He used to play. He's done some unbelievable pranks. Have you heard the prank? He'd done a prank on Bullard, I think.
Nah.
Yeah, his pranks on this mad, like, he's got all different voices that he can use, and he's played unbelievable pranks. I don't know if he said any of them, but I think he was like, he done one in Bullard and got him unbelievable, and Bullard was buzzing off it because obviously he's the king of that kind of banter, but Snoddy is unbelievable.
Bullard not had him back yet?
I don't think so. Because Snoddy's is the main prankster. I don't think you'll ever be able to
Everyone's scared to do him.
I don't think you can get him because he's like clued into it. Oh, he's unreal. Like, I sometimes have phone calls for like journalists and that, and I'm thinking, this could be him here. It's an actual journalist. So I'm like, this could be actually Snodgrass playing me up here. So I'll be adding their names into WhatsApp and having a look at their pictures and that to make sure Snodgrass.
He's in your head. He's in your head.
Got me on post.
For different reasons.
I've watched a few times on sort of, I think Scotland were playing FIFA. A couple of different players are playing doubles, and you just see him. He just looks like he runs a place. Like, he just looks like he's, everything he says, everyone kind of holds on to and's laughing at, and he just looks just a genuinely decent person to be around, to be fair.
Yeah, he's brilliant. I remember walking into Leeds, actually, and it was a match day. And I was a young boy in that, so never really been in and around first team changing rooms. Just remember a match day, like an hour before kick-off, we used to go to the Leeds. I think we were travelling in tracksuits or suits maybe. I think it was tracksuits at Leeds. And I've walked in the changing room and I'm just sitting down on my phone about an hour before kick-off, and I've looked up and he's just walking about the changing room, absolutely not a stitch on, nothing on, just these flip-flops like across the middle of the changing room. And I was looking thinking, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And the gaffer's, Simon Grayson at the time's trying to tell him what to do in the game, but I think the gaffer's thinking, he's got nothing on here. Like, I'm trying to tell him what formation they play in. And I was just looking at him thinking, this guy's he's not wired up properly, just walking about naked and having proper, but he wasn't messing about, he was like being serious, saying to the boy, like, this is what we need to do today and all of this, but absolutely stark, there's nothing on.
It's funny actually, like when you do kind of go from that boys football to men's football, and men are just walking around with like nothing on. Like I can imagine it, like you're probably sitting there thinking, what's going on here? And
obviously, you're thinking, no, that's not like normal. You like walking about, but no, when an hour before kick-off and you're going up to the gaffer and saying, and he's naked and that, I thought it was mental. But he was actually being serious, but nobody could take him serious because obviously he was just talking about the changing room naked.
Yeah.
Well, aside from your club career, you've also achieved 27 caps for Scotland. There's one particular moment in your career I'd like to talk about. 11th of November 2016, England versus Scotland at Wembley. 90,000 fans in, only the third time in 17 years that the two countries have met. I think you'd started the 3 previous matches under Gordon Strachan. I think it was against Slovakia, Lithuania and Malta. Only a week prior to the game, Scott Brown reversed his international retirement decision. How did you feel when the teams were announced and you weren't involved in the starting 11?
I was fuming, really. Obviously, they're the biggest game. That's the biggest game for Scotland that you can ever get is England. And obviously, playing previously, you think you've got a chance. But obviously, Brownie at the time was playing well for Celtic and decided to come out of retirement, felt good in himself. And obviously, he was the captain previous to retiring. So it was obvious that he was going to play. But I was disappointed, obviously, because they're the games you like grow up as a kid, what to play in. But I think I've played in one of them at Celtic Park. So I've luckily been able to play in one of them, but not at Wembley. I don't even think I got on. So yeah, I was disappointed, obviously, not to play. But I think, obviously, at the time, it was the right decision from the gaffer.
I think I remember back to it. I think a couple of those games, like leading up to that, you got man of the match twice as well, which probably frustrated you even more at the time and probably harder to understand for it as well.
Yeah, well, in saying that, I can never ever say a bad word about Strachan because he stood by me, because I think I wasn't playing club football a lot of time and I was still starting for Scotland, I think, because he said that when we went away and trained that I'd showed enough in training, but I still wasn't playing for my club. I think it was Palace and Villa maybe sometimes as well, or Palace and Wednesday. I can't remember, but there was a lot of times where I went away thinking, I'm just going to make up the numbers here, and I eventually found myself playing because I thought, I'm not playing for my club, so I probably won't start in the international scene, and he stood by me, so I could never ever knock him, even though I missed out that day and I was upset and wanted to play in it. He had his reasons for that, and that was it.
I'm going to assume the one at Celtic Park, was that the game when Rooney scored?
Yeah, I think he scored. Did he get 2?
I think he did, yeah. Pretty sure
3-1,
he did.
I think it was 3-1, maybe. I think Andy Robertson scored for us. But I think I came on at half-time or in the second half, and I remember England were good that day, because I think there was leading up to that game, we fancied our chances because I think England were struggling a little bit and Scotland were flying. So I think we fancied our chances that day at Celtic Park, but they were brilliant. I remember the first half, they were unreal.
Cool. Yeah. And just to finish off with part 1, I'm just going to do some quick fire questions with you, mate. What's your plans for after football?
Managing or coaching, probably. I love football and I've lived and breathed it since I've been 2 or 3. So I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, and I get lucky that I can get a manager or a coaching job at a good football team in the future.
Great. What's your best ever playing moment or achievement?
I'd probably say my Scotland debut was against the Faroe Islands at Aberdeen, I think. It was the same week that I played for Villa against Man U, and I got man of the match at Villa Park. I think we drew with Man United that day. And then I got called up that weekend after that game and went and played for Scotland against Faroe Islands and got man of the match as well. So I think that's when I realised that I was doing really well, because I think after the Scotland game, there was a big bit in Sky Sports News as well speaking about me, because I was just played against Man U and then got man of the match for Scotland, my first cap. So say that week was my best week in football.
Fantastic. Who's your idol growing up?
Can I say big Drew Ayton?
Not after the
Probably.
last time on the golf course, mate.
Yeah, I had my bad partner that day. Bad partner. I'd probably say Henrik Larsson. Growing up as a Celtic fan, watching Celtic most weeks, he was the standout player. They were a really good team, that Celtic team, but he was the one that stood out and could do everything. So I'd probably say him, and then obviously Stan Petrov as well. When further down my career, I got the chance to play with him, and I'm good mates with him now.
Fantastic. And just finally, sort of the ongoing argument that keeps going on, Messi or Ronaldo, and why?
It's a no-brainer for me. I think obviously Ronaldo's worked a lot harder, but Messi's a God-given talent, and I think for me it's Messi all day.
Yeah.
A lot of people look at it differently, because a lot of people like hard work and dedication, which, yeah, that's fine, but if you put the two of them in a football pitch against each other, there's only one winner.
I've always said I think undoubtedly Messi's the most talented player to probably ever live. I'm just Ronaldo, just purely based on that he's done it on different leagues. He scores different types of goals, but either way, whichever one you get, you're not going to complain about, are you? So
they're different players as well. Like, obviously,
yeah.
I think Ronaldo's probably more of a 9, than Messi would ever be. But if you compare the goals, they're pretty similar in goals as well. So I think I would say, for me, I would pick Messi all day. I think like his technique and all that's a lot better. He sees things better than Ronaldo. Ronaldo's just a natural, unbelievable player as well. It's just a shame that they're at the same time, but we are probably lucky that we've got to see them, because I can't imagine there'll be many better than them two.
No. Maybe Mbappe is probably going to be the closest thing to
Pedro Neto.
I think in a way, I think they've kind of helped each other out as well, being the same level, and we're probably going to see the same with Mbappe and probably Haaland competing as well.
It's good, because they're both obviously determined to be the best, so they're probably pushing each other without even knowing it.
Yeah.
Because Messi won't want to be second best and Ronaldo won't want to be second best, so they probably helped each other in a way as well. But Ronaldo's probably the better one at the minute, because like he's still banging them in and that. But Barcelona going through a bad patch. But at top, both at the top levels, I would have said I prefer to watch Messi.
On a previous podcast, we chose our Premier League all-time 11. One of the main hotbeds for debate was the centre midfield position, and deciding which two should go in caused a little bit of outrage. As a centre midfield player yourself, what two centre midfielders would you put in a Premier League all-time 11?
It'd have to be a flat 4-4-2 as well, Baz.
So it's to complement each other, or just
who you believe?
That's how I picked it, but
I would say the two best players ever to play in the Premier League.
Hold on, don't plant seeds. Don't plant seeds, Baz.
If I was playing Football Manager, I'd obviously have to complement each other. So I would probably go Paul Scholes as my number one. And it's one of three, probably. Vieira, Keane, or Makelele, but I would probably go Vieira.
Wow, not even a mention for Lampard or Gerrard.
Gerrard's a Rangers manager now, so he doesn't come close. And Lampard, I preferred Scholes. I think Scholes was... He didn't score many goals, but probably being biased because the way I played, I tried to copy Scholes with his passing and stuff like that. So, but obviously, if you're looking for a goal-scoring midfielder, it's Lampard all day. But I would go...
Just for the record, I had the same too. So...
Great minds, think alike.
Who
did you go?
I had Keane and Gerrard.
I had Vieira and Lampard.
Mad in it because you could pick. It's probably 2 or 5 players. 5 or 6.
We said
like David Silva as well, didn't we?
Yeah, I know that's.
Yeah. But we said like left back and right back pretty much picks themselves. There's a bit of discussion on centre backs.
Was it Colin?
Yeah, Cole and Neville, so left and right back. Centre half, there was a few discussions, but I think Rio and Terry took it.
Yeah.
We gave it a check for keeper.
A massive fight for Vidic, didn't I?
Yeah, left mid was Giggs, right mid. We gave it to Ronaldo, but I felt he had a better career after the Prem, so I wanted Bex. And Alex did as well. And then up front, remind me, it was Henry and
Aguero, wasn't it?
Yeah. Again, I wanted Rooney, but they wanted Aguero.
Oh, not Rooney.
It's hard, man. It's hard.
It is difficult, and I think you've kind of given a bit of a disservice to some players. I mean, like we said, we gave David Silva a bit of a special mention because none of us actually picked him in our top 2, but he's been an absolutely unbelievable player.
Rooney's got to be in there all day.
And none of us even picked Shearer either, did we?
No.
He's before
I don't think you can have Rooney over Henry and Aguero though.
I would have
scored more goals.
I would.
But yeah, again, like you say, it's a good discussion point because again, I think it depends. Like some people like flair, some people like hard workers, some people
There's loads of things that come into it as well. Like I prefer Man U to Man City.
Same.
So that's probably how I would go for Scholes, whereas people support Chelsea and go for Lampard. And if Gerrard wasn't a Rangers manager, I'd probably say Gerrard.
So just because he's a blue nose, that's him done.
Yeah, he's not even in the bench.
See, again, this is we said, you know, if De Bruyne keeps going and keeping the levels of what he's a cert in the future, but at the minute he just settled for an honorary mention at the minute. So,
well, none of you were having Hazard over Giggs, so
not a chance.
Well,
Can't have it.
Not long enough for me.
How many leagues did he win?
13.
Who?
Giggs won about 13, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Giggs all day, probably, in it.
I think he's got the most assists in the Premier League, has he, Giggs?
I think so, yes. 100 and odd, in it.
He can't not have it.
Good old Milner and Gareth Barry, if you're going to throw some Villa boys in.
Well, Simon that come on the other day was saying about Paul McGrath, weren't he?
Paul McGrath, yeah. Again, no.
He never won anything, did he, at Villa?
PFA.
Did he?
Player of the year he got.
He actually? The league's player of the year?
PFA player of the year, yeah.
Him and Andy Gray.
That's unreal.
Okay. So that concludes part 1 of episode 6 of the Centre Circle podcast. Thanks very much for tuning in, and hopefully you'll join us for part 2 shortly.